Greetings and welcome everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today for all of you, I'm presenting this list video that I'm calling Every Nightwing Omnibus, with the small caveat of so far at the time of this recording. I should say I am also leaving out any Teen Titans, Robin, or other omnibuses like that. Yes, these are the Nightwing specific omnibuses, and yes, I'm throwing in Grayson because it is still a Dick Grayson adult solo series omnibus, but we're going to call it a Nightwing omnibus just for today. But yes, this is one of my favorite DC Comics characters of all time, and he's having a gigantic release year with some of these very omnibus editions. My intention with this video is not only to show you a comprehensive look at the currently released DC omnibus editions for this character of Nightwing, but I also want this video to serve as a light overview for each of these entries to showcase what each of these runs has to offer and what it adds to the character of Dick Grayson. I'm honestly really excited to talk about this character today, but before we dive into the list, let's go ahead and shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, perhaps some of these very books, I'm always going to recommend checking out their website. You can find a link to it in the video's description. If you see anything on that site you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you for considering. Now let's get going. Okay, and to kick off this Nightwing Omnibus list, we're going to go in chronological order today. So we have Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus from DC Comics. Now this is the New 52 era of Nightwing. So this takes place after the events of Flashpoint, which reset with a soft reboot the entire DC universe. Because of that, this Nightwing run starts with a very fresh issue 1, which is always exciting. This also debuts the black and red Nightwing costume, which is not the most iconic version of this character, as you probably well know. Now this run has personally always been one of my favorites because this was my first solo Nightwing run I ever had the pleasure of starting. I've spoken about it a number of times on the channel, but I actually began collecting and reading comic book collected editions around the time when the New 52 era was coming out. Because of that, I remember picking up some of the early paperbacks of this Nightwing run by Kyle Higgins and Eddie Barrows. But until this omnibus release, I never actually finished the run. So having this omnibus come out this last year in a reprint, it was a real dream. In fact, this was one of my biggest kind of grails or white whale omnibus pickups I always wanted to get. So thank you so much, DC, for reprinting this book. It was even better than I had hoped. But yeah, this run is not overly long either, but we do have the full run here from that New 52 era by Kyle Higgins. That's a name that might be familiar to many. I know he's gone on to do Power Rangers series and the entire Massive-verse Radiant Black universe over at Image. So some really good writing talent here, and I love what he brought to the table with this Nightwing run. This really goes back to his origins with Haley Circus, so if that's a part of the Robin origin you've always enjoyed, this run is definitely one I can recommend. A lot of great flashbacks, and also some really fun tie-ins to some of the other Batman-related story arcs or events that were happening around this period during that Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo era of Batman. So we have the Nightwing tie-ins or portions of the run that really tag up with the Court of Owls and Death of the Family. But yeah, a really terrific book here. I feel like I really understood the character of Dick Grayson even more reading it. The art throughout this collection was awesome, and while a lot of it is set in Gotham, we also go around the country with Haley Circus. We go to Chicago for a period in the later half of this run as well. A really dynamic book. I did enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's very accessible to new readers, especially coming out of that New 52 era, which was really geared to onboarding a whole new generation and just slew of prospective comic book fans. I think that this run really took that into account, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I think it reads really good as a standalone. I think certainly if you've read Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman run, though, it really does help accentuate some of those tie-in based issues. But yeah, overall, a really stunning collection, and one I'm really happy to have in this omnibus format. Next on my Nightwing Omnibus list is perhaps a bit of a misnomer. This is the Grayson Superspy Omnibus by Tim Seeley, Tom King, and Mikkel Janin from DC Comics. And while this isn't technically a Nightwing Omnibus, I had to throw it in here. It is a Dick Grayson-based omnibus that follows his adventures as an adult in the brief period where he is not Nightwing. Well, I guess he was also Batman for a little bit, but let's just throw that out as well for right now. This Grayson omnibus takes place directly after the events of the Prince of Gotham omnibus I just spoke to, and it's the perfect bridge leading into the Nightwing Rebirth omnibus, which I will speak to in a moment. So actually, if you have these three omnibuses, you have one complete unbroken saga of solo stories for Dick Grayson. Really terrific to have that in omnibus. But you might be asking, what in the world is the Grayson Superspy omnibus? Well, if you're going in blank slate, how I would pitch this series is it is as if Dick Grayson was kind of crossed with a James Bond-like story mechanic. It is basically Dick Grayson as a clandestine super spy, but it's a little bit more than that. Essentially, he is infiltrating this corrupt organization known as Spiral, and he's trying to dismantle it from the inside and gather intel for Batman. Along this run, things perhaps get a little bit more complicated than that along the way, but it is a really stunning piece. I've always retained that this is a arc or story premise that feels like it shouldn't work, but it is so well executed, it is just amazing. I feel very similar to when I first heard this premise for Superior Spider-Man by Dan Slott, where you basically have the mind of Dr. Otto Octavius, Doc Ock, in the body of Peter Parker to become the air quotes Superior Spider-Man. On paper, I don't know if that premise should work, and yet the execution of it is just excellent. I feel identical here to what we have here with Grayson. I am a spy fiction kind of fan, though, I would say in general, so crossing that over with one of my favorite DC Comics characters, I was apt to enjoy it, probably no matter what, but I do still think it is really fun. I also think what's fun about this is you really don't need to know that much about Dick Grayson or Nightwing to enjoy this omnibus, and by the nature of this book, it feels very, very self-contained. In fact, I think my only caveat to that is the fact that we have a tie-in with, I think, the Robin War arc, so if you don't know anything about that, that issue or two can be a little jarring, but outside of that, I think, again, perfectly self-contained, a great standalone omnibus. The art from Mikkel Janin throughout this is stunning, and if you're a fan of those James Bond-like spy fiction narratives, there are a lot of tropes to that subgenre that you can see on full display throughout this comic book run. I know I mentioned it at the top of this video, but I did do a full review of this omnibus, so if you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on the story or art or this collection in general, I will try to link that review video to this video so you can see, again, my full thoughts on this omnibus. But a really tremendous run, and one I had to add with this Nightwing omnibus list. I hope you'll pardon my indulgence there as we keep this list going. Next up for this Every Nightwing Omnibus list video, we have the aforementioned Nightwing Rebirth Omnibus. This was also written by Tim Seeley, the same writer for most of that Grayson era, and I really love his approach to Nightwing so far. And of course I'm saying so far because I am actually still actively making my way through this omnibus. It's an omnibus on my shelf that I am reading through every few nights, and I am just loving the ride so far. This is an absolutely massive collection, but it's been a real joy. I think the art throughout this run too has been really fantastic, and I just can't wait to see what else Seeley is up to throughout this period in Nightwing's life. What I love about this Rebirth era is that it brings him kind of back to basics. They put him back in Bloodhaven, they give him kind of back in his black and blues as Nightwing. He's kind of taking off the Grayson spy identity, and he's back to his own vigilante moniker of Nightwing, and I really appreciate that. We also have some legacy characters showing up throughout this run, which I always love to see. We have appearances of the Court of Owls, which I really love, and I think Nightwing's relationship to the Court of Owls is really fascinating. We see little bits of that explored here, along with little bits and pieces of his past and some of the Bat family, of course. We have the Night of the Monster Men as well, which was really fun to kind of read through at different points. But yeah, this is an absolutely packed out omnibus. I mentioned it earlier, but this takes place literally directly after that Superspy omnibus, so it's really fun just seeing what the next step is after those adventures. You have characters from Grayson appear during this Rebirth era, but like the previous two entries, I actually still think that somehow this is really good for new readers. I don't know if all of these Nightwing writers just really make themselves accessible to newer prospective fans, but this is another great on-ramp to new readers, and like I said, it's a massive collection, and I believe at the time of the recording that this omnibus is still in print, so it's a great time to still try to pick it up. I mentioned as well that I haven't finished this, but I did do a full unboxing of this book, so if you'd like even more footage and kind of thoughts, or to know more about what it collects and things like that, I'll try to link that unboxing video so you can see that full overview of Nightwing. And when I do finally get around to finishing out this omnibus, if you'd like to see a full review, let me know in the comments. I'll see what I can do there. But yeah, this has been really fun, and actually this was a period of Nightwing I maybe knew the least about, at least of a lot of the modern appearances of Nightwing, so to have this in an omnibus format and get to read it myself, it's been a real treat. This was definitely a highlight of this year as far as my own personal collected editions I picked up, and it's one I really didn't expect to. I really wanted to prioritize that New 52 Prince of Gotham omnibus and the Tom Taylor Redondo omnibus, but when I had enough finances to pre-order an additional one, I am actually so excited I did. Like I said, this has been a fun read I've picked up a couple times every few nights, and yeah, I've been really enjoying it so far. I really like how they portrayed Dick Grayson, and I can't wait to finish it up. And hey, while I have your attention, if you're enjoying this list video and you also like things like comic book reviews, unboxings, shorts, interviews, and more, and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing stuff like that, and I'd love to have you aboard. Thank you for considering. Now let's go ahead and begin wrapping up this list. Okay, and last but not least, to round out this Every Nightwing Omnibus list, at least for what they've released so far, we have to talk about the recently released Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo Omnibus Volume 1. This is actually the inspiration for today's list. I just recently got this. I just filmed my review video for this omnibus, which I believe I'm going to release before this list video, and if that's the case, I will link my review of this as well. But yes, this was a much anticipated release for this year. This is one of the latest Nightwing runs, period, so I'm so excited to start collecting it in this oversized omnibus format. The artwork from Redondo is some of my favorite in the character's history, perhaps my very favorite, I'd even say, and this omnibus just captures it beautifully. Now, this is a Nightwing Volume 1 omnibus of what I believe to be a 2-volume set, so stay tuned. I'm hoping we get the Volume 2 before too long. But yeah, a really tremendous book here. Like all of its predecessors in this list, this is another perfect onboarding point for new readers, as it really does reset the status quo quite well. Tom Taylor, again, makes it just so accessible for newer readers to jump right aboard, and for such a celebrated run like this, that is a really good quality to have. I do think it rewards longer term fans, particularly with cameos and some of the character development we get, but the new readers, honestly, this is a great place to start. This has been, again, a really huge buzzworthy modern run, and I think it really has deserved the accolades. The characterization and storytelling, the story arcs in general, I think have all been fantastic from what I've read, and the art from Bruno Redondo just takes it to the absolute next level. Really, really enjoying this one. I can't wait to finish out this run myself when that Volume 2 omnibus comes out, hopefully. But yeah, a huge win for DC Comics fans out there. I know that this was a much sought after book, and even though this omnibus is a bit smaller, I think it's just an essential piece of Dick Grayson history. I think what this adds to the table is, again, just another freshening of this character. I know Tom Taylor's design was to really promote Dick Grayson's Nightwing to an A-list DC character, and I think in many ways, in fact, I think in all ways just about, he really achieved that end. I think that this really did elevate the character of Nightwing beyond kind of a sidekick or B-tier character into an A-lister. You know, I think that this has always been a kind of cult favorite DC Comics character, but I think that this really helped augment the just general public appeal of this character even more. I really love this character. I've always really enjoyed this character, but I think that this year has really just revitalized my interest interest in this IP. Really a fantastic character, like I said, and this run accentuates that in just every possible way I can think of. The artwork as well, it's just incredible. I mean, you're seeing it as I flip it through. I'm just not even going to do it justice, but a really tremendous release here. And again, this of course is the Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo Omnibus Volume 1 from DC Comics. And again, at the time of this recording, this is the most recently released Nightwing Omnibus. Alright, and with that, it's going to bring to a close this Every Nightwing Omnibus list video. This was a very fun one to put together. Again, Nightwing is one of my absolute favorite characters in the DC Universe, and as far as I know, these are all the currently released Nightwing or Nightwing-based omnibuses out there. I'm hoping for many, many more in the years to come. I'm eagerly awaiting the Volume 2 for this Taylor Redondo run, and I would love to see the Chuck Dixon era Nightwing get a proper oversized hardcover omnibus release, or set of releases I should say. I'm really happy we're getting those compendiums, but hey, I'm ready for those omnibus editions. Let me know in the comments if you're a fan of Nightwing, if you've picked up any of these omnibus editions, if you plan to, and perhaps what is your Nightwing run you want to see in omnibus format. Let me know all of that again in the comments below. Even just looking at these books, just such a huge year for Nightwing comic book releases. I'm really happy to see that over at DC Comics, and I'm hoping we get more and more in the years to come. From one comic book fan to another, I sincerely hope you've enjoyed going on this journey with me. Don't forget to leave those comments, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, again those comments, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks for watching everyone, have a good one.